Tonight, a dramatic escalation of President Trump's illegal immigration crackdown. The first of 1,500 extra troops touching down in El Paso, Texas to support border security. And for the first time, migrants being deported not on chartered flights like before, but on military aircraft. 2 flights landing this morning in Guatemala.
We're getting the bad, hard criminals out. These are murderers. These are people that have been as bad as you get.
After a record 10 million illegal border crossings over the past 4 years, ICE now ramping up roundups of undocumented immigrants, making 538 arrests yesterday across the country, doubling its daily average in September. Cities including San Francisco, Salt Lake City, and Atlanta. In Newark, New Jersey, this surveillance video appears to show ICE agents making arrests. City officials and immigrant advocates say ICE agents raided this local business, arresting 3 undocumented immigrants and briefly detaining an American citizen, a military veteran, while they asked him for documentation.
They were scrambling up delivery ramps. They were banging down bathroom doors to make sure no one was hiding inside.
ICE doesn't call them raids, but targeted enforcement operations, adding agents sometimes encounter U.S. citizens while conducting field work and may request identification.
Do you plan to use city resources to impede ICE?
We're not going to participate in what we think is unlawful.
Newark's Democratic Mayor Ras Baraka telling us late today there were 2 more operations in his city where more than a third of the population was born outside the U.S.
Donald Trump won this election. What would you say to Trump supporters who are watching this and saying that's what we voted for?
They're wrong. I would say you're wrong. You were wrong then, and you're wrong now.
Meanwhile, according to this internal memo obtained by NBC News, the Trump administration is reversing another Biden border policy, allowing ICE officials to quickly deport migrants who were legally allowed into the country temporarily under the Biden administration. Back in El Paso, Daniel de la Cruz lives just blocks from the border and praises President Trump for keeping his campaign promise on deportations.
America needs to take care of the American people. I'm glad that Trump is in office implementing the law.
Meantime, Gabe, you have some new reporting about Mexico's role in all of this.
Yes, Lester, 2 U.S. defense officials tell NBC News that Mexico denied access to a U.S. military deportation plane on Thursday. As we mentioned, 2 planes landed in Guatemala today. Meanwhile, here in Newark, the mayor says that he expects more deportations over the next few days. Lester.
President Trump today touring damage and hearing from displaced residents in parts of North Carolina ravaged by Hurricane Helene 4 months ago.
I totally feel like that we have been forgotten.
The president, alongside the First Lady, again complaining that FEMA's response has been too slow.
Unfortunately, our government failed you, but it wasn't the Trump government. It was a government run by Biden.
And floating a potentially dramatic move, eliminating FEMA entirely.
I think, frankly, FEMA's not good. FEMA's turned out to be a disaster. I think we're going to recommend that FEMA go away.
Instead, proposing the White House send disaster relief directly to states and give governors more control. But a president does not have the power to shut down FEMA and would need Congress to give him the authority to remake or get rid of any agency. FEMA's defenders argue the federal government supports states and has a breadth of expertise and resources to respond that most states do not have. A top Democrat tonight panning the proposal.
I mean, if there's one reason we're one nation under God, it's to deal with disasters. So no, we shouldn't get rid of them.
Meanwhile, the president just landing in L.A. to visit the wildfire zone there, greeted by Governor Gavin Newsom on the tarmac, after repeatedly attacking California's Democratic leaders over the state's response to the disaster, and hours after detailing a pair of demands before he will offer more federal aid to the state.
I want to see 2 things in Los Angeles: voter ID, so that the people have a chance to vote, and I want to see the water be released and come down into Los Angeles and throughout the state.
Newsom's office says other states don't require voter ID, and California pumps as much water now as it could under Trump's first-term policies, writing conditioning aid for American citizens is wrong. All of it with a final Senate confirmation vote expected tonight on Pentagon pick Pete Hegseth. Earlier, an NBC News review of records from Hegseth's divorce from his second wife, Samantha, includes a court-ordered agreement precluding either of them from saying anything publicly that would disparage the other. Since her ex-husband's nomination, Samantha has commented publicly about him only once, in response to a request from NBC News for comment on an affidavit by his former sister-in-law, Danielle Hegseth. Samantha told NBC News, "There was no physical abuse in my marriage."
And Peter, let's turn back to FEMA for a moment. The president is moving forward with his plan to eventually overhaul it.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Lester. A White House official tells me tonight that the president is signing an executive order that will establish a task force to review and provide some of its suggestions to Donald Trump about what to do with the Emergency Management Agency.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.